This is the Jenks City Council. It's Tuesday, March 30th, 2021 at 6:00 p.m. Let's call roll, please.
Isbell?
Here.
Fox?
Here.
Dyke?
Here.
Kaylin?
Here.
OJ?
Here. Here.
Murray?
Here.
Mayor Lee?
I'm here. Thanks for being here, everyone. For tonight's invocation, we have Gloria Denton from First United Methodist. Pastor Denton, thanks for being here tonight.
Hi, everybody.
Hi. Welcome.
Hey, Pastor.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Ready to pray?
Yeah, we're ready. Thank you so much.
All right. I invite you all to bow your heads as we pray together. God, we begin with praise and thanks today for the tremendous blessing you have offered to the Jenks community, for the rich heritage, the strong history we have here. What a privilege it is to call Jenks home and to have the opportunity to be useful in doing good work on behalf of your people and the people here of this community. As our city council gathers and our citizens join along online, we boldly ask for wisdom, a genuine desire for justice and rightness, meeting the needs of and ensuring the flourishing of all our people, clarity, and the ability to see a way through on every challenge that would present itself. Unity in our city leaders, unity of purpose and priority, the ability to work together, safety for our city workers, our leaders, our officers, our residents, our business, for joy in their task, for the upcoming election, for the agenda that they have tonight. God, as I read the agenda, I thought about easements and all these things that don't look exciting on paper, but when we drive through town, they sure do look good. We see so many things happening, and we are so grateful. And we pray, Lord, that you would continue to give them the ability to keep doing good things for Jenks. So we pray for our mayor and vice mayor, for councilors Kaylin and Gary Isbell and Corey Box and Craig Murray and Don Dyke. Pray for the agenda before them, and that you would give them an assurance of what would please you and what would benefit those who live and work in this wonderful city. In the holy name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Oh, thank you. And
Thank you so much, Pastor.
Thank you.
And have a great night.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right. Now we've got Corey Box. Would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight?
Yes, sir. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Counselor. All right.
If
Mr.
we keep
Mason.
doing these remote meetings, we're going to have to start putting flags in every room, brother.
You're right. You're right. We'll pass them around. All right, Mr. Macy, do we have any citizens' comments on any item that isn't on our agenda tonight?
We do not.
Okay, then we will move on to Mr. Shrout for his report.
Mayor and all members of council, in some legislative news, House Bill 1566, which was authored by Representative Sims, would allow the aquarium to keep state sales tax collected at the facility to use on marketing campaigns to promote the aquarium. The state sales tax is 4.5%. That amounts to about $150,000 a year. The bill passed out of the House with a vote of 86-12, which is pretty overwhelming support, I would say, considering it's the state giving up funding to the aquarium. After passing out of the House, it was assigned to the Senate Finance Committee and to the Senate Appropriations Committee. So it has to get out of both of those committees, which is a little bit unique, but since it's related to funding, it was assigned to both of those. It passed out of the Senate Finance Committee within the last 2 weeks on a 9-2 vote. It still needs to be heard in the Senate Appropriations Committee, and that is tentatively scheduled for tomorrow. So I was going to see if I could speak with Fred Jordan in the morning and potentially get a list of those senators that are on that committee, and maybe we could have an email that could be sent to those committee members, kind of explaining the importance to the city of Jenks and our citizens, and frankly, the entire state, related to the impact that the aquarium makes.
That'd be great.
Somewhat related to that, Representative Sims, Dills, and Senator Rogers were the speakers at the Jenks Chamber Legislative Breakfast. It was their first one in person on Friday, and there was a really good turnout for that. It gave Representative Sims another opportunity to talk about the aquarium bill. Obviously, he was in friendly territory, but all the business leaders and local school officials seemed very supportive of that. And then after that, later in the afternoon, Senator Rogers visited the aquarium with Councilor Lynn, and they were able to take a quite extensive tour of the aquarium with Kenny and Ann. And, you know, I think it really provided Senator Rogers a great opportunity to understand the impact that the aquarium makes, both financially, bringing people from out of state and all over the region to Jenks, but also from an educational standpoint, all of the education that the aquarium provides to, again, the Tulsa metro region and the state. So that was great. I don't know, Kay, what'd you think? You think it was a good visit?
You're muted, Kay.
Councilor Lynn,
Kay,
you're muted.
It was a great visit because him being a contractor and in construction, you know, to see the backside and how things were, he was able to relate to that really strongly. Yeah.
So, I mean, and he wasn't as, it was great because he really wasn't as familiar with the bill since it's still in committee. So it was a great chance to kind of educate him before, you know, others even start to talk to him about it. But really, I know that last year the bill passed the House and then did not make it out of the Senate committee. And so the fact that it so overwhelmingly passed in the House and then has made it out of the Finance Committee with a 9-2 vote, we're pretty optimistic. And if you think about, you know, what $150,000 can do for a marketing budget, especially, you know, focused on out-of-state marketing like Arkansas, Southern Kansas, the DFW area, I think it could really have a big impact. So we're ever hopeful that that passes. I know that really we've been working on this on and off for years. So hopefully with Representative Sims' help, we can make this happen. Something moving on from that, you know, this topic comes up almost every year is we have the fireworks stands and the temporary use permits that come through. And I think the Planning Commission for years now has kind of had issues related to those permits. And this year, Planning Commissioner Brown did provide a memo with some of his suggestions related to potentially amending that TUP process and the UDO process that's coming up related to where they're permitted, how many, how close, the cost for permits and when they're issued. And I think that I will forward his memo. Well, I haven't talked to him about it, but I'm assuming since he sent it to me and Carr and Marseille, I can forward it on to you guys for consideration too. But the other issue aside from the TUP process is just, you know, the time frame that we allow fireworks and the days, the number of days that they're allowed. You know, I think if we are going to amend the TUP process, it might be a good opportunity to talk about just fireworks in general, as they do, you know, we get complaints about them every year. And it is a topic of conversation literally for months as we go through the TUP process leading up to July 4th. So the big fireworks show, I know I think I've updated council that last year the city paid for the fireworks show because Los Cabos usually sponsors that event and pays for the vast majority of it. They don't think they'll be able to for the next couple of years. I've talked with the contractor and he sent over a contract to me, and I think we can tentatively move forward with an amount between 20 and 25,000 for a fireworks show, but ideally it would be 40,000, and that would require council approval. And so I anticipate sometime in April, hopefully having an item on the agenda to discuss fully funding the fireworks show, which is usually $40,000. And then hopefully we can get some businesses to kick in some donations to help support that. But I think it's a point of civic pride, and I think it's a great tradition. It's great for our businesses, and in conjunction with the Chamber's event during the day, it brings a lot of people to town, and I think there's a lot of pride in being able to hold one of the biggest fireworks shows in the Tulsa metro area. Police and fire negotiations begin this week. The fire department's coming off a 5-year contract. The police department's coming off a 2-year contract. I jokingly say, we have the joy of trying to negotiate both of them at the same time and get it done in time for the budget. So we hope to wrap those up in the next 2 months, but they really begin in earnest this week. We've had some questions about the Oklahoma natural gas project, and it's really their contractors that have been executing the project in downtown Jenks, putting in new gas lines. And there have been a couple holes, literally holes in the ground that are, the entire width of the alley at 3rd Street, just south of Main, that has been open for a couple months. And we contacted ONG, who contacted their contractors, and they hope to have the whole project wrapped up, hopefully by April 2nd. So if you get questions about that, there is an end in sight. And I believe that's about all I have. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Any questions
Do
for
you
Mr. Shrout?
know
Oh,
when
go ahead.
do you know when the trees will be finished as far as the planting?
That should be, I would defer to Chris Cloyd, but we've had a couple delays with having to move around some trees, but I think we were hoping by the first week in April, and I think that's still attainable.
Yes, within the next week or two, it was scheduled to be April 3rd, but we're looking at tying up a few loose ends here and there, maybe next week, but I think the majority of all the trees will be done by the end of this week.
Very good.
Okay.
Those are looking nice.
Can I
Thank
ask a question about the trees, Christopher? Are those donated to the city, or does the city purchase those? Since it's part, is it part of the Up With Trees program, or is it part of our Tree City? Which one is it exactly?
That's a good question. We've done numerous things over the years. These trees were donated. I mean, the vast majority are donated. We get a discount. So those trees are about $100 to $150. And, we get them from a wholesaler that sells them to Spring Creek Nursery. And those trees are sold to Spring Creek. I don't know if I should be saying this or not, but, for more like $300 to $400. And then Spring Creek turns around and sells those, to contractors, landscape architects and stuff for even more than that. And so we have the opportunity. We basically, because the nursery is in Jenks, we have the first opportunity to get the discounted trees, and then we partner this year with Up With Trees, who plants the trees and then guarantees through maintenance, guarantees the tree for 3 years. In past years, we've used Up With Trees to source trees and then maintain trees for 3 years. We've also tried using an outside contractor to purchase the trees and plant them and try to maintain them. That we found that Up With Trees, really, because of the volume of trees that they plant in the Tulsa metro area, and that's really the only thing they do, they do the best job in terms of planting and maintaining. And we've had trees sourced by Up With Trees, but the size of the trees that we're getting from Tulsa growers for the same price Up With Trees could get like a 2-inch caliper tree. We can get, 4 to 5-inch caliper tree, which means they're like 20 feet tall. So we're lucky we have Tulsa growers here in Jenks willing to work with us.
Great. Thank you for clarifying that. I appreciate it.
I could go on and on.
Let's go on and on. I do want to say that I drove through Park West, and the new trees there look wonderful. It adds another level to the park itself. And we saw others on the ground ready to be planted. I'm sure they've been planted in the last few days, but it really looks good in the city.
And the other great thing about Up With Trees is they use so many volunteers. So when I was out at Park West, I think that was, last week sometime, they had the alternative Jenks High School, a whole busload of kids were volunteering, helping Up With Trees plant the trees. So it really is a great community partnership.
Absolutely. Thank you and Mr. Cloyd for making that happen. Anything else? Mr. Shrout. All right. Thank you for that. We'll move on to our first order of business, consideration and appropriate action relating to requests for approval of the consent agenda. Are there any questions or motions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, thank you. Let's vote.
Isbell,
Yes.
Bach,
Yes.
Dyke,
Yes.
Kaylin. You're muted, Councilor Lynn.
Yes.
OJ,
Yes.
Murray,
Yes.
Mayor Lee.
Yes. We will pull item number 2 and move on to 3. Request to approve revival and First Amendment to TIF Economic Development Agreement with Tulsa Premium Outlets. Ms. Nolan, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. You have before you a proposed revival and amendment to the TIF Economic Development Agreement with Tulsa Premium Outlets. You have this before you because the original TIF agreement had in its section 5.22 a provision where the agreement automatically expires upon the expiration of the second anniversary of the agreement if Simon has not submitted a pay notice, a TIF reimbursement notice, essentially. That date did pass without one, but Simon has assured us that they did not intend to let it pass, and both the city and Simon would like to continue the agreement. So this document essentially revives the agreement so that it is valid and good again, and makes a minor amendment to that particular section to allow an additional 6 months to file that first payment notice.
All right, thank you. Any questions from council on this?
Sure. So what happens after 6 months from today's date when this expires?
Well, ideally, Tulsa Premium Outlets would submit a claim for reimbursement under the TIF, and that would basically extend it out through the life of the project. So the deadline is really related to the reimbursement submission, and that just hasn't happened yet.
So the expectation is that there will be a submission for reimbursement between today and the next 6 months potentially.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we anticipate.
Okay.
Does that correlate with the opening of the outlet mall or just the funding on their end?
The work already completed.
Yeah, this is related to public infrastructure improvements, and so Tulsa Premium Outlets has done basically rerouted Wilmot Creek, which is a public improvement. Really increased the capacity of Wilmot Creek, that paralleling north-south on the railroad tracks. Floodplain has been land has been brought out of the floodplain with some of that earth. And and a gas line was moved to accommodate development. So there's quite a few, expenses that Tulsa Premium Outlets has incurred that would warrant their ability to at least submit for reimbursement.
Okay, thank you.
Well, John, we're really excited to see you here tonight.
Can I say something?
Yeah, please.
Okay. No, it's great to see everyone. And my name again is John Dionis, a developer, First Simon Premium Outlets. And we to address the question, Corey, yes, we do have qualified expenses to submit. We were preparing all that and we had not submitted, and we need to do that, and we'll do that in short order to validate the agreement. And to address the larger question, everyone, I'm sure it's on their mind, we've got a project that started and was stopped. So, look, last year with the global pandemic, it was very impactful to our business. When it started, I don't think we realized as a company that we were going to be shut down across our portfolio, adding up days at each of our centers for a total of over 13,500 days, all told in 2020. So we moved swiftly. Our leadership understood what potential was going to occur last year, and in fact, it did play out. So we stopped construction on a number of projects, pretty much everything that was going at the time, and to ensure that we were going to be in a strong position when this thing ended and we came out of this. There were two other public REITs that declared bankruptcy in the fall. We are a very strong company. That was never a threat, but we also are a leader, and I think we acted in the manner that allowed for us to maintain our strength and our leadership position. And at this point, what we're seeing is some good signs in the business of leasing, which is tied to us restarting. So we are not there yet. I think there's a lot of tenants that are still getting their feet under themselves financially, and we're looking to get them in a position where we can get a critical mass together to join us in restarting and being ready for a grand opening. But at this time, we don't have a schedule for that. We are optimistic, and we like what we're seeing, even though it's coming from a reduced level of business. Things are heading in the right direction, and unfortunately, we don't have a schedule at this time, but that's where we're at. And, we feel we're in a very strong position to capitalize on the opportunity again when I think the tenants in the industry are ready to go.
So what's the capacity percentage that you're looking for the tenants as far as that goes?
That's a good question. It's a qualitative answer. It depends on more larger anchor type. We don't have traditional anchors like a mall, but your larger tenant drivers, co-tenancy. It's a complicated formula, and it becomes a situation where the solution is arrived at when all the inputs are in place. And so I don't know, there's not really a particular threshold. Unfortunately, it's not that straightforward.
Okay, so what percentage are we at this point in time?
Well, that's unclear for me to share. I don't have, it's moving. It's something that leasing reports on regular basis, but I don't have that information to share today.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's always a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the questions we're getting for sure.
I understood.
But
So
We appreciate you. Oh, go ahead, Kay.
let me ask you a question, and if my information is correct, because it's a few months ago that we talked.
Yeah.
And before you even considered building the mall and starting the infrastructure, you had 80% committed occupancy. Would that be a correct statement?
I'd have to look back. Okay, I don't remember what the number was, or how if that
Sure.
was spoken at the groundbreaking ceremony. I don't recall who had, if it was our CEO at the time. But I could follow up, but I don't recall what that number
Sure.
was.
I know,
It was definitely north of 50%, no question about it.
So when we talk about that, is that going to be a requirement that you may, and I'm just asking generalities, I'm not asking you to proprietary information.
Right.
But is that something that you may look at again before you resume construction? Is commitment from different department stores or outlets or anything like that? Is that something that you would look at like you did the first time?
Yes. So what we would look at is level of commitment from number of tenants. And like I was explaining, it's a qualitative answer. It's not, there's a certain threshold.
Sure.
It depends on who and so, yeah. So that's something we continually evaluate, month to month, and we'll hopefully get there at some point in the not too distant future. But those are things that information is brought in and reviewed, and a decision will be made based on that. But there's no set parameters.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there's another thing that's been on my mind, because I have kind of followed you online as far as how Simon's doing and David's quotes and things like that, as things have gone along. And one of the things, and it has given me, don't think I've even voiced it to my fellow counselors, is where they were taking the malls that you own, and Sears has had a real hard time, but they have large areas, and they've been converting those areas into like distribution centers and marrying up with Amazon, I believe, or another distribution center. I just want to kind of pick your brain a little bit to make sure that maybe Jenks is not going to be looking at a distribution center versus a true outlet mall.
Well, I don't really work on the mall side of the properties. I stick to the premium outlet side, but I know there's been opportunities to convert them to Lifetime Fitness centers and other, anchored style users. But so, and if it'll vary as to what we look to as a user, but no, we have no plans of converting it to a distribution center.
So what?
Yeah.
Go ahead. No, I'm fine.
Sorry, Kay, I thought you were done.
Yeah.
So what exactly would be a qualitative parameter as far as what you're talking about?
A number of tenants, which cross section of tenants will be ready to go. So it's,
okay, so it's not necessarily cool as much as it is filling the mall. Is that?
I'm sorry, you cut out there for a little bit. Could you repeat that?
Yes. So it's not so much as the quality, so much as the number of tenants.
I think it's both. I think it's what we would call quality and quantity. Sure.
Okay.
Just probably wanting to round out the selection and make sure you've got a good diversity of different stores and Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So what I'm hearing is that you're cautious but optimistic.
That's correct, Gary. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
if nothing else out of this, John, and we talked beforehand on this, it's just this is at least a little bit of that light at the end of the tunnel that Simon's not leaving Jenks, and we still are looking forward to you guys being here and partnering with us. And I know the citizens online watching have to be excited that we're even discussing it. And so
Sure.
I know you can't say, okay, we're going to be there tomorrow. We're not going to be, or we'll be there next week. But at least knowing that Simon's doing what they can to make sure you guys, when you come, that things are going to work right. And that's exciting for me. And I know the rest of the council, as well as all the citizens of Jenks, because they're ready to spend money.
That's
right.
terrific. That's great news to hear. And as I was mentioning to you and others before and in the past, I've been working on this project for many years, and more than I have on any other project, and I have a vested interest, and I look forward to restarting the project as soon as we can.
Thank you.
Right. We're right
Thank
here
you.
with you, John. Thank you. All right.
Okay,
Are there
with
any
that-
motions?
Yes, I'll make a motion for item number 3, request to approve revival of and First Amendment to TIF Economic Development Agreement with Tulsa Premium Outlets.
Second.
Second.
All right. Thank you. Let's vote.
Isabel,
Yes.
Fox,
Yes.
Dyke,
Yes.
Kaylin,
Yes.
OJ,
Yes.
Counselor OJ.
Yes.
I heard a
Okay,
yes.
not down. Murray,
Yes.
Mayor Lee.
Yes. The motion carries. Thank you. And thank you very much for being here, Mr. Dionis.
Oh, thank you very much, Mayor and Council. It's been a pleasure to see you again, and thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Best wishes.
Thanks.
All right, we'll move on to item 4, request approval of the award of the Veterans Park Splash Pad construction project to RJR Enterprises Incorporated, Rogers, Arkansas, in the total amount of $436,485.50. Funding for the same to be paid by the Jenks Vision Sales Tax Fund and account number 33750-5392, Fund 33, Jenks Vision Tax Projects, Building and Improvements. $400,000 is included in the existing FY 2021 budget. Funding for the remaining $36,485.50 is requested to be appropriated from the Jenks Vision Sales Tax Fund balance to be budgeted to account number 33750-5392, Fund 33, Jenks Vision Tax Projects, Building and Improvements. Mr. Cloyd.
Mayor and city councilors, the Veterans Park Splash Pad was approved by voters and is funded by the Jenks Sales Tax Fund, included in the existing fiscal year 2021 budget in the amount of $400,000. The proposed Veterans Park Splash Pad will be located between the pavilion area and the playground, kind of south of the bathroom building and then north of the pond, so kind of in that open area. The bids were opened on March 24th. Staff received quotes from 6 general contractors. You can see on your memo there how the bids came out. The apparent low bid was from Construction Enterprises, Inc., or CEI. However, the design consultant reviewed the bid with CEI and with the splash pad equipment provider, and it was determined that the bid for CEI was incomplete and doesn't include all the required material and labor to complete the project. Therefore, staff recommends to consider the CEI bid as unresponsive and therefore not considered for award of this contract. Staff does request approval of the award of the Veterans Park Splash Pad construction project to RJR Enterprises, Inc. In the total amount of $436,485.50. Are there any questions on this item?
Any questions?
So with the $400,000 that was originally approved, was that just a estimate again? And that's why we allocated that much money towards it? I know you came in after it's been done, Chris. Lucky
Well,
you. Me too.
It was an estimate, and it was an estimate that was made a few years ago. Well,
this, if I could just jump in, Chris,
yes.
This was contemplated back in 2015 and then was put before the voters for the vision extension in 2016. And so at that time, yes, we were estimating an amount for a splash pad, and that was kind of our general idea of how much it would cost. Obviously, 5 years going by, you know, I was hoping we could keep it within the 400,000 because that's what we'd originally allocated through vision extension. But the fact that it, you know, especially in these times, that it is only over 37,000, I think is encouraging in some sense. And, you know, we have had higher than anticipated vision extension revenue. And so that's why we feel confident that we can handle the 436 number.
And when we used to do, I know because we're still kind of making up for some of these as we go, when we used to do our estimates, did we actually prepare the designs like we're doing nowadays? Or was this just done a different way in the past?
This was back in 2016 when we were reviewing all the potential projects for the vision extension. I believe we had conversations with Greg Helms at the time about what a splash pad, because really a splash pad can cost $50,000. It can cost $800,000,
right,
$2 million.
Right.
And our goal was to keep it within the 400,000 and still get a robust splash pad at Veterans Park. And so, you know, I do think we did get a little bit less than what we could have had we done this project, you know, 5 years ago, just because of construction prices. But no, we did not have an actual design at the time of that we went to the voters and asked for approval of this project. We just had the dollar figure.
Great. Well, you're like you said, it's really positive that we were at least closer than a lot of things that they've done this way previously. I just wanted to make sure, that we're doing. And I like the fact that we're still making up for these, and we have the funding to do that. But that for our new ventures, we are doing the designs first, trying to get a more accurate number. So thank you for clarifying. I appreciate that.
Mr. Shrout, yeah, I got a number of questions. So it sounds like nobody in this current council was around in 2016. So just refresh my memory. This was a vision extension vote by the previous council. Where is the genesis for this splash pad idea? Whose idea was this? Was this the past council, past city staff? I haven't heard about a splash pad in 4 years, so this is kind of I've had a number of conversations today with a few of the counselors that are on the call now and some from the past, and it seems this is a topic of discussion that's pretty fuzzy for at least a few of us. Where did this splash pad idea come from, and who's been behind it for the last 5 years?
Well, the citizens of Jenks voted to spend $400,000 on this project. So it wasn't necessarily a council vote. It was a vote of the people of Jenks that approved spending $400,000 on this. And so we had in 2016, we allocated, the council came together, had numerous workshops, and said, if we're going to extend the Vision 2025 sales tax for another 15 years, which is 0.55% of any eligible sale, what are the projects that we want to put before the voters, and in order to justify extending the sales tax. And the low water dam was one of those projects. 16.5 million is allocated for the low water dam. And then there's a slew of other projects, because I think we estimated at the time about $22 million in revenue over that the life of the sales tax extension. So we have construction of the South Tulsa Jenks Low Water Dam, neighborhood road maintenance program, construction of a splash pad at Veterans Park, engineering and right-of-way acquisition for Elm Street widening project, sidewalk construction, paving and striping of Park West, reconstruction of First Street from Aquarium Place to Aquarium Drive with sidewalks, a reconstruction of 7th Street. So those are the projects that went along with the vision extension, and those were voted on by the citizens of Jenks in 2016.
Does the ballot language provide us the option to spend this money in other ways?
Well, I mean, we've committed to doing these projects, so we need to do them. If we don't want to do them, I'm sure there's a process for not, for having some sort of public hearing. But, the genesis of the splash pad is at Central Park. We have a splash pad that might be 15 years old and is in, it's really not up to date. And the idea was Veterans Park is our kind of premier park, centrally located, and that's where council and staff at the time identified to put a splash pad.
So it's a dedicated project voted on by our citizens of the city. Is that correct? That's in the language itself. Okay.
And I mean, yes. And this is, and not only that, but this is approved by this council in this year's budget, the $400,000.
Yeah.
So that's a budgeted amount that was approved in June.
So legally speaking, and correct me, maybe that's the wrong word here. I mean, we are the city council. What's this vote for? We're not voting whether or not we still think this is a good idea to build a $400,000 splash pad. We're just awarding a contract. What if we choose not to award this contract? What happens to the splash pad?
Well, we'd have to figure out another option.
Why would we choose not to do that?
Do we have the legal authority to use this money for any of the other, quote, slew of other projects that were mentioned in the vision extension tax?
Well, we're going to have the funding for all of the projects.
Yeah. But I mean, we have the authority and an obligation to spend the money in the most wise way we can. So we could move $400,000 and we could spend it in anywhere else. We could throw it back towards the low water dam. We could put it into the road construction maintenance project. We can move it anywhere, but we're not under an obligation.
Legally, yeah, there's some way around getting out of spending that money on this project, but.
Yeah, well, I know we approved the budget, but $400,000 is a speck in the total dollar amount of the budget that we approve, and frankly, nobody on this council was probably around or in any of those discussions. It just seems 5 years from now, there hasn't been one whisper of a discussion for a splash pad. So
isn't this similar? I'm going to interrupt you because I don't understand why we're not agreeing to something like this. Is this not similar to like when we put out a bond and we say, we're going to do this, this is what we're funding this money for? When you go to vote, you voted yes, I think a splash pad's a great idea. And then city council to come back 5 years later and say, no, we don't think so. I don't think that is proper. This is what the people voted for.
Yeah, I would recommend spending the money on what the people, approved.
Wholeheartedly.
And I mean,
Agreed.
and to say that there wasn't a whisper of this, I'm pretty sure I can go back and find, where this has been documented that this has been a priority.
Well, that would be good to have that documentation tonight. And if we're going to spend this kind of money in the future, it would be good to be able to produce that bid language for all. Maybe put it in the packet as an exhibit so we're aware of this information, because I've gotten a few calls on this and from people that are usually monitoring our money and our expenditures, maybe more so than we are. And it's just this caught me by surprise. I had a discussion with at least two of you today, and it seemed like you guys, the two that I spoke with, it wasn't on top of mind for the other two of you that I spoke with either. So it's just a lot of money, and it is a 5-year-old idea. And I'm sure if we did a survey today, it very well could pass. This very well could be something people want, but a lot changes in 5 years. And I think it's worth our time when we're considering this amount of money to probably go back and revisit a topic like this. And we have ways to do that. before we spend $440,000. I'm not against a splash pad, but I can tell you from all the meetings I have and all the town halls I have, it's never come up. People want what they want. And this is what I would call a nice cherry thing to have, but we still have bananas and ice cream we have to build all over the city of Jenks. And like I said, I'm not against the splash pad, but it sounds like I'm in the minority here. But let me ask this question. So we know how much it costs to build. What's the annual projected maintenance cost to keep this running?
It's the cost of the water, essentially.
Okay, so we don't have any projected costs for maintenance.
Well, we have our existing budget for the existing splash pad, and you can just extrapolate that to whatever size this is.
Okay, what about safety certifications? Did we have any previous issues with past issues with the previous splash pad before when it comes to environmental or water quality? I went on YouTube today and I've watched a couple of videos of some cities that have real concerns with splash pads where they have microorganisms getting in the water and kids getting sick. And you know what? I don't have time to verify whether it's true. It just is what it is. You can see these things in a quick search, but you know, these are questions we're allowed to ask.
Yeah, I mean, in council,
$400,000.
You know, when we had the vision surplus funds, the city council voted to allocate $1 million to a skate park. And that wasn't voted on by the people. That was just excess money from the original vision project, and there was excess funds. And so, you know, the city council allocated money for numerous projects because of, you know, there was a surplus, and the skate park at Veterans Park was one of those. So, you know, I think it's good habit if you go to the voters and ask them their opinion and they say, yes, we want this, and please tax us in order to build this, that the city goes ahead and builds what the citizens have requested to be taxed to bring in the revenue to build. I mean, the first bond on Main Street, I think, was in 2002. It wasn't completed until 2018, I believe. And there were 4 or 5 bonds supporting it over the years in 2006, I think 2011, 2013. So a lot of these projects do go to a vote of the people and take time to execute.
And I agree wholeheartedly, but like I said, in my opinion, we asked this 5-6 years ago. We have mechanisms in place with social media. We could have surveyed our citizens and said, hey, here's what you guys approved 5 years ago. Is this still a priority? We could have had answers in under a week. It's $400,000. It would have been worth a little bit of investigation, but that's just me. I'm done. I appreciate everyone indulging me for a moment.
Can I ask you a question? Because I have no idea how this is done. I'm not saying one way or another on anything, but if it comes up, like say we want to extend the sales tax again, okay? Something comes up. I'm just playing to get my mind straight on this. When you extend, how do you do that, Christopher? Whenever you want to extend the sales tax, do you list the items, each one individual, or do you say to improve infrastructure? Do you do an umbrella statement? How's it done? That's all I'm asking.
I don't know that I have that ballot language in front of me, but generally speaking, whether it's a geo bond or it's a sales tax extension, we try to provide the projects and the amount of funding that each project will receive in locations as much as we can so that the voters understand what they're voting for.
Okay.
And we had similar to what we've done with the geo bond that was approved in August, we had public meetings to talk about these projects, getting public input. We had council retreats to talk about the projects. And so it's similar to the geo bond. language.
I was just going to add, I think on the GEO bond, our goal was to identify 80%, specifically identify 80% of the projects. So I think it's something similar where most of the things are identified by specific projects, and then there's a small amount of wiggle room. That's the right recollection.
Yes, our GEO bond had like 20 million of it identified and 5, kind of out there, 500,000 kind of out there, something like that. But yeah, it was line item, wasn't it? Saying exactly what it was, because that's why we spent time going over that, deciding what everything it should cover, and then taking it to the people to see if they wanted to agree.
All right, well, I'm ready to show up at Veterans Park with my swimsuit, so we'll get this done.
That's a no.
Fair enough.
You just killed it.
You're welcome, Corey.
I'll make a
Are there any
motion
more
to
questions?
approve
Thank you.
the request, the approval of the award of Veterans Park Splash Pad Construction Project to RJR Enterprises in the total of
Second.
436. Okay.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Let's vote.
Isbell,
Yes.
Box,
Yes.
Dyke,
Yes.
Kaylin,
Yes.
OJ,
Yes.
Murray,
Yes.
Mary Lee.
Yes. On to item 5, request approval of resolution number 731, a resolution amending the annual appropriations by $37,000 and account number 337505392, Fund 33, Jenks Division Tax Projects, Building and Improvements for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021, to fund the additional cost for Veterans Park Splash Pad project.
So moved.
Mr. Sauce. Okay.
Seconded.
All right, let's vote.
Isbell,
Yes.
Box,
Yes.
Dyke,
Yes.
Kaylin,
Yes.
OJ,
Yes.
Murray,
Yes.
Mary Lee.
Yes. Item 6, request to accept the FY 2019-2020 audit report prepared by Franken Associates, Pllc. Mr. Sauceda, what do you got for us?
Mayor, members of council, the audit report was emailed out about a week ago and was also included in your packet. This is the first year with our new auditor, Franken Associates, and they issued an unqualified opinion, meaning that our financial statements are fairly presented in accordance with the standards. And as far as our internal controls, they didn't identify any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses. Overall, those are good things to have. And then if I may point out some areas of interest in the report, if you've had a chance to read it, page 41 of the audit report, this sometimes comes up. What does the city owe, or what's the city's debts? What are the city's debts? And page 41 is a good place to reference. So it would start off with the city first. So you have a detail of the general obligation bonds, kind of a description of the ones that are outstanding and how much is left on to pay off. And of course, this is as of June 2020. So the 2020 GEO bond would not be listed since that was issued in November. And then it continues on with any notes payable and then any debt held by our trust. So the JPWA and the aquarium. Another area of interest would be on page 64. This would list all of our funds. So starting off with the balance sheet first, and then the income statement. So all of the funds that make up the city of Jenks, and then all of the funds that make up the JPWA. And again, it shows the balance sheet, which would show levels of cash, assets, liabilities, and then the income statement, how that fund performed in that year. So if you ever have any questions on the city's funds, that's a good area to reference. Are there any questions?
Congratulations on having a clean audit. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I was
We knew you
impressed
could do
with the detail that was in the presentation. It explained a lot of things I had questions about before, and it was very straightforward. I do really appreciate this, and I spent a lot of time reading through it. I can't guarantee that I know everything and what it meant, but the descriptions and explanations that go along with it are much better than I've seen in the past. And I really appreciate the effort that's gone into this statement. Thank you.
Good. And of course, if you have any questions outside of this meeting, we're always welcome, always available if you need any help, any explanations.
Thank you. Great job. And any other questions on this?
No, sir.
And any motions?
I'll make the motion that we approve, we accept the fiscal year 2019-2020 audit report prepared by L. Frank and Associates.
I'll second that.
All right, let's vote.
Isbell,
Yes.
Box,
Yes.
Dyke,
Yes.
Kaylin,
Yes.
OJ,
Yes.
Murray,
Yes.
Mayor Lee.
Yes. All right, we'll move on to item 7, discussion of proposed short, 5-year and long-term 5 to 10-year capital improvement plan. Mr. Shroud or Mr. Carr, do you want to kick us off here?
Yes, I'll take it. You have before you a lengthy list of projects which you've seen in some form or another before. At this point, again, we've got a 5-year capital plan proposed, and then a long-term capital plan, which is essentially something that would happen after 5 years, probably 5 to 10 years, or even more than that. When you add all the projects together on both plans, it comes to almost 120 different projects, including engineering and construction. What I've attempted to do this time around is to break out in the 5-year plan a proposed timeline based on the budgeted year, which is shown only on the 5-year capital plan. The reason for that I didn't include it on the long-term plan is that because those projects are potentially far enough out that it's a little difficult to even try and propose what a schedule might be for those. What I also found as I was putting the schedule in there that a lot of the projects will require engineering to be done and construction following that. So there's a lag between engineering and construction shown on the schedule. But also because of the magnitude of the projects, it was, in my opinion, we needed to spread out some of the engineering a little further so that what you may have seen in a previous rendition of this, some of the projects that were included on the 5-year plan have been shifted to the long-term plan because there were just so many different items to be done. Even though we might contract out engineering, we still have to manage these projects. So with our limited staff, it was, in my opinion, we needed to push some of these projects out a little further. Now, on the flip side of that, some of these projects are even included in 2013 bond issue, and we're now 7 or 8 years into that bond issue, and we still are pushing some of the projects out even further than that. As Councilor Box was saying, I mean, some of these projects have been around for quite a while, and maybe a future council might not even agree with some of the scheduling. But we still know we need to do these items at some point or another. Now, obviously, we're not asking for a motion to approve the plan, but I sure would like to be able to try and get some feedback. I know that many of you or all of you gave some ideas of what priorities should be. I hope I've reflected those properly in this, in at least in the 5-year plan, so that we can move forward. Now, the ones that are shown in the scheduling for fiscal year 2021 are included in this year's budget. The ones that shown in fiscal year 21-22, we have included in the budget for next year, and or we will be making some modifications to include these in the next budget submittal that you'll see here in another couple of months again. But beyond that, we will try and stick to these fiscal years as best as possible, depending upon how we can accomplish getting these projects funded and scheduled. So, I mean, if you want to talk about anything in particular, willing to do that. I think the ones that you see on the 5-year capital plan that's listed under city facilities and public safety are still ones that are a little bit unclear on what direction is to be taken on some of these projects. But I'm showing a schedule for everybody to take a look at and see if you agree with what that schedule is. But most everybody said, you know, the wastewater treatment plant, sanitary sewers, water, drainage improvements, you didn't really have a lot of expertise in that. You're kind of relying on staff's expertise for those. We do have some master plans already in place for the wastewater-oriented ones and the lift station. And we're trying to use that master plan to develop the schedule from that also. So I'm open for some discussion and get into as much detail as you all want to get into at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Carr, for your work on this. And this is something that came out of our discussion when we were putting together the bond package that we passed last year. And, you know, obviously the issue that we had was we've got 100 some odd projects, but we can only afford to do a few. And so coming out of that, the question was, okay, of the projects we have left, what are they? What's already funded? When do we do them? What do we do first, second, third, and 120th? And so I think this has been a great exercise to go through, to see these projects and to wrap our arms around them. It was certainly eye-opening for me, and I hope it was to you too, because we do have a lot of things on our plate that we need to get to. So are there any initial questions or comments on this from council?
Yeah, Mayor, I can get it started, and I'm just trying to question for Mr. Carr. Well, for anybody really who may know, just looking at the backside of the first page, we're still on the 5-year capital projects plan. If you'll go down to the bottom, and I'm going to use this as an example I'm going to ask a question so I can understand if these numbers are sequential simply or if they're in a priority order. So looking at city facilities and public safety, Mr. Carr, I noticed the JAC is number 52, but it's the first in the order under city facilities. Is that first in the order because we as a council determined it was the #1 priority out of these 1, 2, 3, 4 items, or is it first in the order for some other reason, such as the design has currently been, you know where I'm going with this. Are they simply in an order that you put them into the spreadsheet, or is that the priority order that this council has determined? So do we want a JAC before an animal shelter, and does that also imply that we
that the aquarium parking extension is at the bottom of our wish list. What's the rationale behind the numbering system?
No, to be honest with you, there is no priority listing of these projects. They're on the list because they are projects that have been discussed. A couple of them are already under design. We have issued some design contracts for a couple of those projects, but that does not mean that they have been rated that way as a priority, in priority order based upon the numbers.
Of the projects you mentioned, this is the one that we've approved funding the design for.
I'm sorry, Mayor. What?
Oh, I was just adding a little bit to Mr. Carr's comment. That's the project that we've approved the design, or we approved funding the design for.
Yeah.
So
okay,
it's something that that's why it gets its X in that spot.
Okay, so the design is for this current fiscal year. No construction plan on the horizon. So I don't see that there's a construction. Okay, all right, good enough. So new animal shelter design, 1 cent capital for the next fiscal year. Okay, Mayor, refresh my memory again, at some point, and maybe this is a question for the city staff as well, we do have a pretty long wish list here. I think you said 120 items. In many respects, when it comes to all of these things that are way beyond our scope of expertise, anything to do with sewers and lift stations, in my personal opinion, I think we're going to rely on staff to kind of put those in a priority order for us. I think it's well within everyone's capacity to understand how we can prioritize major street widening and improvable any road projects. We can simply survey people to get an idea what their priorities are. I think at some point as a council, we probably need to hide away in a hole somewhere and have a good 8-hour sit down and have a heart-to-heart with each other on some of these large projects like bridges and dams and these things that cost multi-millions of dollars, and determine, how much time and effort do we want to spend asking our staff to pursue project management of these things. Maybe we should consider a little retreat so we can kind of focus on our top 5 out of some of these big ticket items. But I appreciate the explanation of how you constructed the spreadsheet. I think it's exactly the same as it was when I saw it a few years back, and I just couldn't remember if we had ever determined if this was a priority order or just simply a numerical order. But thank you for that explanation.
Let me explain something also. I think from our perspective, this document should be looked at during the budget process, and will be a very fluid document as time goes on. Just because it's shown in one fiscal year doesn't necessarily mean that is what will be ultimately the timeline. There can be some projects that are on the 5-year capital plan that'll be shifted over to the long range one, and vice versa. So it's very fluid.
Since you brought it up, then how often do you touch this document and really dig into it and make major changes?
Well, we haven't really used it in the capacity that I was just talking about. We started trying to do that a couple of years ago, and then we ended up putting the project plan together and then divided it into the short term and long term. And just recently I added those dates in there so that we could try and figure out how we might be able to accomplish what's on the plan. So it will be touched at least yearly, maybe even twice a year if we need to.
I think it's good to use, like we did previously, for identifying TBD areas that we may need to put forth when we have a bond roll off and we want to renew that bond. or add to that. We already have that list of what are necessary items. A lot of them are necessary, you know, like the wastewater and the roads, things like that. And so it's a really good go-to. And the fact that he has, I like the fact that you put the years on there, so we can, as we're looking at it, we go, okay, this is still a design phase. So we know that we need to plan. So we have the funding once we have the design cost another year down the road, things along those lines. So thank you very much, Mr. Carr. I think it's really, really helpful for planning for the future with different budgeting and bonds as well and other funding sources.
I appreciate the comment. One of the other things that I think we need to keep in mind is that if we're going to get funding on some of these road projects through INCOG with the Surface Transportation Program, the only way we're really going to make progress on that is we need to have engineering done first. So in order to get the engineering done, we've got to determine where that sits on the priority list. We've got some listed on here, 14 of them under major street widening and improvement projects, but there's probably going to be more that we could add to that if we want to see if we can achieve getting some federal funding for any of these projects.
So, Mr. Carr, and I'm going to put you on a spot, and that's okay if you don't know this because it's a tough ask, but if you had to guess right now, just for the engineering and design work and millions of dollars, if this were your budget and you were a decision maker and you were the only decision maker, how many millions of dollars would you like to set aside in an average fiscal year just for design work to plan ahead for these projects that, if they do require federal funding, you know, these projects take 10 and 15 years. Just if this is you and you're alone, how many millions of dollars do you want to put aside each year just for design work? I mean, we're literally talking about in 2022 prepping for a road project that we don't even know exists because it's in 2030, 2035. So what do you think? And all your experience and from an engineering and being in all these budget meetings, what should we be looking at?
Well, I think we have to determine what our budget capability is also, and how we fit those in. I mean, a typical road project is probably going to cost us $500,000 to $100,000 to $1 million for engineering. And then we've got to figure out how long that's going to take, probably a year and a half, 2 years, depending upon, well, with the federal involvement, it's probably going to be 2 or 3 years because environmental clearance takes another year to accomplish. So we're always talking at least 3 to 5 years out before we're going to get any construction going if we started right today, if we had the funding in place. But I'm just talking about getting the engineering done so that we can at least get some more points in the rating process through INCOG. And that's been very difficult to get lately. The dollars are going down that's available to the different municipalities, and there's more competition for these projects than there ever has been. And the only way we're ever going to keep it on track is we've got to get the points up. So that means we really do need to have the engineering done so we know what a better cost estimate is for the project, and have the environmental underway somehow if we can, and get as many points as possible. If you look at what INCOG has awarded lately, it's always been ones that had been designed already.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, if we want to look at putting it into a bond issue like we did for Elm Street, then we're on our own. We don't have to be contending with competition with the other municipalities. So it's a multifaceted answer I'm trying to relay to you.
No, that's fine. You know what? And one thing I would encourage Mr. Carr, and I know this is I think the third time that you've hinted at this council that we need to probably have projects that are engineered if we're going to continue to be successful in getting funding. I would ask that you and Mr. Cloyd and the city staff just come up with your own wish list of projects that you think are the most important for this and the future councils to consider devoting dollars towards engineering studies, because you know, we're about to have some turnover. Obviously, we're going to have a new mayor. We potentially might have some new council. We've got new fresh faces. We don't see big numbers like this very often. So in many respects, we rely on your guidance. You guys have been there for many years. So if you've got a wish list of things you wish we would consider devoting some dollars to get engineering studies done, I would certainly welcome it and be excited to read it.
Is that something that we can actually put into a budget? Like set aside so much? I guess that's what Corey's kind of leading to. Is it something we need to look at because we've got a budget process coming up? Do we need to set aside so much budget for the potential of design or engineering? Or is that already done?
Well, on specific projects like the Elwood between 121st and 111th, and on Elwood between 96th and 91st, and the potential new road extending 106th to the east. I mean, we went to the voters to get approval for engineering, I think to the tune of $1 million each for those. And so we do have money set aside for some of these projects. And, you know, I believe we have a bond that's going to be retired here in 2022. And I think it would be a good opportunity. You know, we have this, my hope is, and Robert Carr's hope is that this becomes a part of the budget process. And, you know, with respect to design, we have been trying to set aside funds and budgeting, you know, whether it's for the Jenks Adult Activity Center, for the fire station, for 1st and 7th Street, you know, all of those, Main Street from Date to the railroad, all those are under design right now. And I think that, you know, looking to 2022, we need to decide, you know, we have another opportunity with that GEO bond rolling off to potentially provide, you know, some more needed projects to the voters, and in a case that may not raise their property taxes overall, because one's falling off and one's coming back on if it's about the same price. And so, but, you know, Robert Sauceda and Robert Carr worked together to try to set aside and identify the funds that we already have, maybe through a GEO bond project or through the vision extension, or, you know, annually we have our 1 cent capital budget on capital projects. And, you know, those are much smaller projects that the engineering and design cost significantly less, but certainly on the bigger projects that we're talking about, you know, I think we approved the design of the force main extension at the last meeting, which was, you know, $600,000 with an estimated cost of construction of something like $10 million. You know, we have another huge, I believe we're awarding a contract on the wastewater treatment plant at the JPWA meeting after this to the tune of $11 million that will be funded through the revenue bond. But that engineering contract with, was it Cohen? CP&Y was, you know, I think $1 million. And so, but, you know, spending that money up front, like Councilor Murray and Box you were talking about, and Councilor Dyke earlier, you know, we get a much better estimate on the actual construction costs. So.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions about any specific projects or funding sources or any of these schedules that we have here? Gary.
I was looking at it from the perspective of the items that were on here that did not have a designated funding for. And one thing came to mind, correct me if I'm wrong, with the recent revenue bond to replace the water meters in the city, we have an opportunity to have a more accurate representation of the water sales. And that may increase revenues that could cover the design work for the wastewater treatment plant, sanitary sewer lift stations, water systems, and drainage. Is that something we could do, or is that revenue designated for something else?
Well, part of that revenue has to go to retire the revenue bond, but I think as operating expenses of the system increase, I don't know that we've set aside those funds, the potential increase in revenue, but that is an option. I think the 1 cent capital is an option, but when you start talking really large numbers, it's
I may have overstated the ability to have extra revenue, and yeah. I was just trying to see if we could align some of these projects specifically to a revenue source that may be available. And again, I'm guessing it, and I use the word may be available.
Gary, I see your point. That's a good question about, if we're going to generate revenue on water, it only makes sense that if we had additional revenue, it makes sense fiscally and from many other perspectives to use that additional revenue to pay for things related to water. So yeah, that's a good question. I agree.
But only time will tell.
Yeah, I don't know that we're making that much money, but
no, like Chris said, we have to cover the revenue bond at first, and then see what happens.
Right. Well, this is great, and so does council need to? Do we need to approve this at some point, or this is just a part of the budget process? Not tonight, but
okay.
Is this just going to be part of the informing the budget process going forward?
I think this could be a part of the budget document, and it could be explained that this is a fluid, but this is basically a plan. Our budget is technically, it's only 1 year. We try to do a 2-year plan, so we don't, we do it all at once, and then we can, we're going to be going into the 2nd year. But I think this could certainly be a part of the budget document, and that way we would be forced to review it on an annual basis, and say, yes, this still is the plan, or as even since this was created 2.5 years ago, I think there's been new projects that we've been talking about that have been added, or projects that have been amended. And so to do this on an annual basis and say, this is the plan, I think that'd be a good idea.
Yeah. I want to say thank you to Mr. Carr and to you, Christopher, because you guys have put a lot of work into this. But it also, the way I look at it, is you've set goals for council. These are things that our city needs, so these are goals that we can look at, and how do we obtain them?
Absolutely.
And I want to thank Mr. Carr too. I mean, this is really, if you think about the amount of work that goes into putting a document like this together, it took me a long time just reviewing it line item by line item. And so I can't imagine, the amount of time that Mr. Carr spent creating this and editing it, and trying to even just think about how best to present this to a group of people. So.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Well, I appreciate the kind words. I really do want to have this document used to create a roadmap for us in the future and future councils to be able to see what we need to have done, and be able to see where we're going and what the magnitude might be. I mean, you got to recognize the dollar figures that are put into a lot of these projects are really not very accurate when it comes down to having done a detailed analysis of what it may really cost. I mean, it could be more, it could be less. Hopefully it's less, but it could be a lot more. We were just in a meeting today that people were talking about how the construction costs have skyrocketed here in the last year. So I give Greg Helms a lot of flack periodically about some of his cost estimates, but I think it's really very difficult to do in the environment we're in right now.
I can't believe you just said that in front of Councilor Dyke. She's going to ask about the costs and the overruns and everything. maybe okay, you prefaced it with the fact that construction costs are going up, so maybe that'll satisfy her for now.
He's covering himself. I caught that.
Well, that wasn't my intent. I just want y'all to realize that the costs have really changed here in the last year.
And we understand that. I do think just across the board doing the design work and then engineering ahead of time just at least gives us an accurate number at that time, knowing that it can change, but it's so much better than just a guess, you know, kind of how it seems like at times it had been previously. So I think it's a great formula to continue.
Yeah, I just bought a sheet of plywood today, so I know the cost of lumber.
It's really helpful to know, what these projects are going to cost, what people can prepare for, and I think this will be a good reference for council members and citizens alike. I think we all get questions about the status of a certain project or when we're going to work on that or this project, and I think it'll be really nice to be able to reference this and say, oh, this is the project. This is when we're estimated to start on this. This is what it costs. So. A great job. We have a lot of work to do around town, but it's fun work, isn't it?
It's a lot of work. Speaking of which, if I could ask Mr. Cloyd a question, I had a citizen asking about Providence Hills on when the crack fill in and I guess overlay stuff is going to start.
Yes, the pre-work meeting actually was held last Friday, and the contractor, with the recent rain and weather we've had, they've asked that they will be able to start on April 19th.
Okay.
I'm not sure if they mentioned that whether they would start at Copperfield Estates or Providence Hills, but I can find that out for you, Councilor Murray.
Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any other questions or comments on the capital projects plan?
No, sir.
Okay. Well, thanks again to staff for putting this together. It's really helpful. All right. Let's see here. So before we adjourn, I just wanted to make a few quick comments. My term officially ends in 3 weeks from today, but tonight is my last city council meeting. It's been a truly humbling experience working with the team here on council, at City Hall, JPD, JFD, Public Works, and the aquarium. I say humbling because these civil servants have dedicated their lives to their fields, and they are incredible at what they do. And whether you're showing up as a new councilor or leaving as a mayor, it's never lost on you how much you still don't know. In addition to humility, I also feel deep gratitude for the professionals who stand between us and harm's way every single day. The last 2 years have been nothing but have not been normal. We've had floods, tornadoes, severe winter weather, and a once-in-a-century pandemic. Through it all, the team at the City of Jenks has carried us through, even stronger than we were before. The team has accomplished a lot, and I'm proud that through everything else, we were able to pass a historic bond package to strengthen our roads infrastructure and plan for our future. The capital projects list we've been reviewing, along with our new comprehensive plan, will provide the roadmap we've been needing as we prepare for the future. Some have asked what I'll be doing next. First and foremost, I'll be focused on my kids and wife, hopefully creating a more normal family life than we've had over the last 4 years. In addition to my day job at OU, I also have a growing graphic design business that I'll be keeping up with. And I'll continue to advocate for policy areas and candidates I believe in. But first, I need to clean out my garage. It's a real mess in there. I want to thank every one of you and most of all the people of Jenks for what has been one of the most interesting, educational, and fulfilling times of my life. I know I leave the city in good hands, and I'm at your service if there's ever anything you need. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor.
And Mayor, I must say, you and I and Craig have been together for the last 4 years, and
keeps freezing up.
And no matter what, I respect everybody who chooses to do this. This is a tough thing, and being the mayor, I'm sure you've taken ass kicking on many occasions, and I know the hours must be tough. And choosing to have a young child in the middle of it, probably while during a flood when we should have been building an ark, those are really tough things to do. It doesn't matter why people choose to do this or how well they do it. It's a tough thing, and I think all the citizens of Jenks, regardless of how we're measured when we're said and done, owe the city council members a debt of gratitude, because I don't think anybody realizes how hard this is until they get into it. So we appreciate your last 4 years of service and willingness to step up and take that leadership role in the last 2 years. I absolutely think your family will be, and your kids, everyone's going to benefit for you to take some time to step away and continue to be a breath of fresh air. And frankly, it wouldn't be very Bobby Lee-like if we didn't hear from you again. So I fully expect you're going to stick around like that maybe that mosquito that keeps trying to get in my back. But thank you for your service, man. It's a tough thing, and you survived. You don't appear to have any bruises. I don't see any additional gray hair. So congratulations on keeping your cool.
Thank you, Counselor. I appreciate that. Are there any motions to adjourn?
No, before we adjourn, I wanted to say I look forward to you speaking up in the public comments section from time to time. Okay? Thank you very much for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Lee.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll be on the front row with Josh Driscoll and Bill Rogers. So, all right. Are there any motions to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Let's vote.
Isbell?
Yes.
Fox?
Yes.
Dyke?
Yes.
Kaylin?
Yes.
OJ?
Yes.
Murray?
Yes.
Mary Lee?
Yes. We are adjourned, and we've got time for one more. The Jenks Public Works Authority. It's Tuesday, March 30th, 2021, 7:30 p.m. Let's call roll.
Isbell?
Present.
Fox?
Here.
Dyke?
Here.
Kaylin?
Here.
OJ?
Here.
Murray?
Here.
Chair Lee?
I'm here. First step, General Manager's report. Mr. Shrout.
Chair and all members of the authority, with the American Recovery Plan that was passed by Congress, I guess a couple weeks ago now, there was money allocated for municipalities, and it was broken out between, I can't remember exactly the terms used, but generally large cities can work directly with the Treasury Department, and then smaller cities would be working with the state, with their respective state. And so the money going to large cities would go directly to those from the feds, and then the feds for smaller cities send that money to respective states, and then the states are responsible for sending that to the municipalities. And it's based on a per capita basis. And I believe, based on estimates from what I've seen, we're potentially eligible for $3.2 million. But it has to be for losses incurred related to COVID. It has to do with essential workers, or you could use the funds for capital projects related to, I think it was water and wastewater infrastructure. And so I don't have a whole lot of more detail than that, but we've been working with INCOG and OML, and hopefully we'll have an update here shortly on exactly, if we can expect the money, and if we need to identify capital projects related to water or wastewater, if we don't have the losses that would justify the funds. So that's something that we'll continue to evaluate and provide an update in April. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Well,
Would that have anything? Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. The splash pad's associated with water.
Hey, there you go.
Okay, I just throw that out. Sorry. Go ahead, Don. I'm sorry.
Could that have anything to do with the aquarium and our losses incurred there? Or are they talking about more on things we actually had to pay forward and then we took a loss?
It could potentially, I don't know the answer specifically.
That is rare. I'm just going to say that,
talk,
Christopher.
but I'll just say.
That's a really good idea. All right, anyone else? All right, then. Thank you, Mr. Shrout. We will move on to our first order of business, consideration and appropriate action relating to requests for approval of the consent agenda. Questions or motions?
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
All right, thank you. Let's vote.
Isbell,
Yes.
Hawk,
Yes.
Dyke,
Yes.
Kalen,
Yes.
OJ,
Yes.
Murray,
Yes.
Shirley.
Yes. And we will pull item 2 and move on to item 3. Request approval of the award of the wastewater treatment plant Phase 1 improvements construction project to Crossland Heavy Contractors Incorporated of Tulsa, Oklahoma, in the total amount of $11,917,000, including additive alternate bid items 1 through 7, funding for the same to be paid by the 2019 JPWA revenue bond and account number 557265392, Fund 55 WWTP Capital Improvements, Building and Improvements. $11,400,000 is currently included in the FY 2021 budget, and a supplemental appropriation will be needed to cover the remaining amount. Resolution 2021-05 will appropriate $520,000 to cover the difference and to cover any additional expenses, such as the publication fee for the legal notice soliciting the bids. Mr. Cloyd, welcome back.
Chair and authority members, the wastewater treatment plant Phase 1 improvements have been designed by CP&Y. The improvements include the replacement of the headworks and UV system, rerouting electrical lines into a new electrical building, and demolishing the existing headworks, aeration equipment, clarifiers, and grid facility. Bids were opened for this project March 19th of this year. Staff received quotes from 5 general contractors. You can see the bids there on table 3 in the memo. The apparent low bidder was submitted by Crossland Heavy Contractors with a base bid of $10,262,000 and a total amount of $11,917, which includes the additive alternate bid items 1 through 7. I'd like to go ahead and go through the memo where I mentioned the structure of the bid. The bid was structured with 15 items in the base bid, 7 items were additive alternates, and there was 1 deductive alternate. So the 7 additive alternate items were split from the base items because staff wanted to really ensure that the base items, which really was the substantial work, was covered and we could get that paid for. And that included the installation of new headworks, UV system, and electrical building. Staff recommended doing all of the alternates because the low bid came in below the total amount of the 2019 JPWA revenue bond, which was for $13 million, and its work should be done for the improvement of the wastewater treatment plant operation. The deductive alternate was added because the operations contractor for the wastewater treatment plant, Veolia, thought they could source the pumps at a much lower price. So Veolia sourced the pumps for $357,980, and the low bidder sourced the pumps for $285,000. Had the low bidder provided the higher pump price, we would have deducted the price that they quoted for the pumps and used the Veolia price. So hopefully that's understandable. We were just trying to save a little bit of money if we could, but in this case, we weren't able to do that. The contractor came in with a lower pump price than Veolia did. So staff requests approval of the award of the wastewater treatment plant Phase 1 improvements construction project to Crossland Heavy Contractors. Are there any questions?
No, sir.
I have one question, and I think this might be more for Robert Carr if he's still on the line. The entire project of the rehabilitation of the wastewater treatment plant, was that 30 million or 40 million? And this is just phase one.
I'm sorry, ask that question again.
The rehabilitation of the wastewater treatment plant, was that a total of 30 million or 40 million? I can't remember. It was like 2 years ago, 2.5.
I think it was more on the order of 30 million over the next 20 years.
Okay.
We've got the CPNY, we've got Mike Graves on the line that he may be able to update me on the cost.
Yes.
I couldn't remember what the cost was. Please go ahead.
Sure. I don't remember the exact cost either, but it was a range, like Robert said, it's a range in the 30 million over, I think it was over the next like 15 years, Robert. There is another phase that needs to be done within the next 5 years that will help actually increase the plant capacity further, just because the city continues to grow, and that next phase will include some additional clarifiers and other just needed processes to increase the flow.
Okay, I was just, oh yeah, thank you very much. I was after the two numbers. This is 13 million of 30 million. And that was the answer I was looking for. Thank you very much.
And just for information purposes, as soon as the construction is nearing its end, in this phase, we'll start phase 2 engineering. So it's going to be kind of back-to-back stuff that's going to be coming along for everybody.
So speaking of which, when do you expect the construction to be done on phase 1? More or less?
The contract is for 600 days. The substantial completion, which includes the headworks and the UV, is 480 days.
So we're 2.5 years out?
It's a little, well, it's about 1.5 years for the bulk of it. And so 2 years, what is it, like 18, is that 18, 19 months for the 600 days? 2 years would be what, about 730 days.
Okay. And Mr. Carr, I don't have a question related to phase 1, but do you still have that document we saw a couple years ago where you had extrapolated the different phases out for many years, and we were kind of looking at this thinking this was going to, do you still have that? You know what I'm talking about? I think you projected 25 years out, all the projected costs and projected annual maintenance.
Yeah, that was a document that CPNY had put together as a master plan for what we would need ultimately. Yes.
Okay, so that was a CPNY product? Okay, because that was a hell of a good spreadsheet itself. We should probably have a look at that included with our next budget committee meeting when we're trying to think about how much money we're going to be spending over the next couple of years. That was a really good document, and it gave us all a good long-term view. And it reminded us that this wastewater treatment plant is the biggest money sucker in the city.
Yeah, if you look at the long-term capital projects, we've shown on there phase 2. Well, actually, yes. Let me go back. It might be on the short-term projects list. Yeah, wastewater treatment plant on the short-term projects is for year 5 is for engineering of $2,370,000 for engineering, and then in the long-term projects we show the construction to be another $11.8 million for phase 2. So that's shown on there, and then phase 3 is shown also on the long-term projects list.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Floyd, you talked about the Viola price for pumps. Is that a brand distributor of pumps, and then this company found one or a different pump brand for 200 and some odd thousand?
No, we specified that they would use a type of pump. So all of the contractors were providing prices for one type of pump. However, Veolia since they're in this business, they have operating this type of equipment. They buy a lot of pumps. They have a pretty good contract with the manufacturer. They felt like they could get a better price than the contractors that probably just deal with these pump suppliers as they're building things. So that's where that thought came around.
They're a distributor then.
Well, no, Veolia is the contractor that we use to actually operate the wastewater treatment plant.
Okay. I understand. Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Any motions?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right, let's vote.
Isbell,
Yes.
Fox,
Yes.
Dyke,
Yes.
Kaylin,
Yes.
OJ,
Yes.
Murray,
Yes.
Shirley.
Yes. All right, on to item 4, request approval of resolution number 2021-05, a resolution amending the annual appropriations by $520,000 and account number 557265392 JPWA Wastewater Treatment Plant Fund, WWTP Capital Improvements, Buildings and Improvements for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021, to fund the unappropriated balance of the construction project award for the WWTP Phase 1 improvements in the total amount of $520,000.
Motion to approve unless there's any questions.
Second.
All right, let's vote.
Isbell,
Yes.
Fox,
Yes.
Dyke,
Yes.
Kaylin,
Yes.
OJ,
Yes.
Murray,
Yes.
Shirley.
Yes. All right, are there any motions to adjourn?
No, Mayor, actually, if I may, suggestion to you and to Mr. Shrout. I imagine some of our folks are going to be interested in hearing any update at all as it relates to Simon, and in an effort not to potentially send mixed messages. I mean, I'm looking at my notes, and I think it might be a good idea for the city to consider putting any kind of update out there that's possible, and then allowing the council to share it. I think there's a big appetite for some people to know what's going on, and I think we don't want to send any mixed messages. Especially keeping our relationship with Simon in good standing. I think it'd be a good idea for you guys to craft a message that we could all share, rather than everybody taking a stab at what we heard tonight from Mr. Dynamis. Just my suggestion. Your call.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because what I heard overall was really there is no update.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's kind of basically what I tell people is, you know, we have not received an update on construction. You know, obviously with tonight's vote at the city council meeting, they still have continued interest in this property and in this site, and, you know, spent the time and energy to extend this agreement. But in terms of a construction timeline, there is no update.
Yeah,
and that could be the nugget of the statement there. But yeah, I agree that there should be.
As long as something is said,
voice.
I think I agree with the mayor. Probably need to say something. I mean, a couple of my notes that really stuck out in my head is, and it reminds me that Simon, and I'm sorry, I dropped all this into a pile, now I can't find it. Simon, as a property manager, is completely dependent on somebody has to lease the property. So effectively, what I heard from Mr. Dionis is, you know, you have to have Chanel and Louis Vuitton and all these people have to come forward and be ready to lease the space before they can actually give us an update. So I would suggest that you say nothing more than what you just said, plus the fact that Simon is in the position of being completely dependent on waiting for somebody to lease the space. And in the presence of COVID potentially on the decline, and things happening with the cost of commodities and steel and wood and everything else that's going on with the supply chain, I think we could say something that would pacify people without all 7 of us having to take a stab at it individually. So it's a big deal. Everybody wants this to happen. And I trust you guys to send that message.
I would agree with that. I think that's a great idea. I think we do need some kind of communication to our citizens in Jenks, even if it's nothing's been heard or whatever it is. I think that just clarity and transparency with our citizens would go a long way with good communication. So just my 2 cents, but I think it's a good idea.
But we can only be as transparent with the information we have.
Right, exactly. And I think that transparency could go over to the public itself. And even if it's nothing, at least they know exactly what we know. And all 7 of us aren't being bombarded, because I know I get them. I know Corey I know everybody gets these questions. I'm just saying, even if it's nothing, we can still communicate to the public saying, this is where we are. And this is what's happening at this point in time. There's nothing wrong with that.
Maybe if it's just what we did at the meeting and just saying they approached us to renew the TIF. I mean,
there you go. Not
giving them anything different, but once again, it's at least letting them know that there is something happening and it's coming from a joint source. I think we've needed to do that previously.
Yeah, that talks are continuing because the representative from Simon met with council tonight. And so, you know, those kind of things, I don't think it's false hope, because I don't want to give false hope, but just exactly the facts, Jack. Plain and simple. No, we weren't told anything, but we did have a meeting. Simon did come and talk to council, and talks are ongoing, and it's not dead in the water.
And it was outside executive session, so we can actually share it.
Right.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think that's a good suggestion. We'll work on something.
Okay.
All right. Any motions to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
All right, let's vote.
Isbell?
Yes.
Box?
Yes.
Dyke?
Yes.
Kaylin?
Yes.
OJ?
Yes.
Murray?
Yes.
Chair Lee?
Yes, we're adjourned. Thanks, everyone.